knew this day would come. It was rumored for a long time that Martyrs was going to get a remake, receive the remake treatment.
Surprise, surprise.
Before the first image was shown, before the cast was known, before anything at all, the internet was furious.
I could never imagine the internet mad. Mad? Are you kidding me?
The 2008 movie Martyrs, I think, is a very, very good movie. And I think it holds a special spot in a lot of horror fans' hearts for multiple reasons. It's like a secret between horror fans, and you're like, well, have you seen Martyrs? And
right.
And I think that is actually a probably large sum of the people that are mad about this. Like, I feel like a lot of people are upset that their secret is getting out, and that any day now, January 22nd and February 2nd, to be exact, the soccer mom passing by the local, Red Box might be able to pick up Martyrs and talk about it, with her fucking soccer mom friends or something.
I don't think this remake was ever made for the people who were fans of the original Martyrs. So I tried to really let this one live on its own merits when watching it, which, having seen the original, isn't the easiest thing to do.
Martyrs is different than, say, like when they reboot Halloween, or when they reboot Friday the 13th, or The Evil Dead, or something like that. Like, those movies are very much like a situation that repeats itself over and over again. It's kind of a cookie cutter situation. So, like, if you want to remake Friday the 13th 1,000 times, you put horny teenagers in the woods, you give them alcohol, and you fucking kill them in creative ways. Like, that's what you do. So it's not that big. Like, you're not going to ruffle that many feathers every time you reboot the franchise, because it's going to be the same thing either way, and I think that's a good thing. But with Martyrs, this was a very artful, movie that I think has to be approached in a different way as far as a reboot is concerned. So I tried to gauge the Ghost Brothers work based as its own thing, and it was impossible to do so.
I agree. It's super hard. I will go ahead and give them credit before I say anything else. The dudes know how to shoot a movie. That's some beautiful cinematography, some excellent shots. I mean, all Martyr thoughts aside at the beginning, that's all I could keep thinking was like, holy shit, that's a good shot. Oh, that's a better shot. That's an even better shot. So, if nothing else, you can appreciate that these guys know how to make a movie look.
The original Martyrs didn't come out that long ago. It was 2008.
Yeah.
It's not like it is aged poorly or anything like that. It is still a very, very good movie.
It's still a relevant movie.
Still a very, very relevant movie. Once Martyrs 2016 had its premiere at Screamfest, some of the early words coming out of it was like, well, it's not as brutal as the original film. And I think that should probably go without saying, right?
I mean, I feel like if anybody thought that was going to be on par with the original, you were lying to yourself, telling yourself fairy tales.
The reason that I like Martyrs wasn't for all that stuff anyway. Like, the reason that I like Martyrs is the ending. Like, I think the ending of the original Martyrs is one of the most, I'll say it over and over again, like one of the most thought-provoking endings of a movie that maybe I've ever seen. The 2016 does not do that particular thing very well at all, and as a result, since that was my favorite thing about the original one, it really left a bad taste in my mouth. I actually thought, as toned down as some of the brutality was, I didn't think it was that toned down.
No, it's not if you think of it as it's its own movie, really. It's just like when you're comparing it in your mind, you're like, wait a second, it's just, it's nowhere near. Yeah. And my complaints with the new versus the old isn't really anything to do, I don't think, with the movies themselves as much as it is with the way the movies make me feel.
Okay.
So the brutality in the first one is, I don't think it's a comfortable watch. I think that's the point of it, is not to be a comfortable watch. And then at the ending, I agree with you. That's the point of the movie for me. It just made it feel, I don't know, I just felt like, holy shit, it just felt so senseless and so selfish of these people, what they've done to these two women, or all these women, really. And it's just kind of like, holy fuck, man, like, what a bunch of sleazy assholes, This is so senseless, and it doesn't make any sense. Whereas in this new one, for whatever reason, I didn't get that same punch in the gut when it was over. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess.
Basically, it's the same shit. It just doesn't feel the same.
In this one, the new one, the 2016, I felt like it was almost portrayed like they were doing it for some greater good.
Yes.
And so that kind of almost made it like, well, they're not that bad of a people, which in the 2008, I felt like it was just for purely selfish reasons, and, and there was no greater good given. You know, it was just for personal reasons, and that made it so much shittier, and you hated those people so much more.
It just doesn't have that same impact.
Right, and I'm with you. In the first movie, that's what it's about, like these selfish fucking assholes.
Especially, I mean, there's a moment, and if you've seen the original, you know what I'm talking about, but there's a moment at the very, very end where there's just like a light bulb, and like, depending on what kind of person you are, if you're an optimist or a pessimist, like you can go left or right at that moment. That same moment exists in the 2016 version. That moment that is so important just barely has any weight. Like, if you don't know any better, then you don't even realize that that's a big deal that guy just said what he said. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. And it's just because it's all, yeah, I guess maybe you're right. It just happens so quickly. You're just like, okay, whatever, you know.
And that was a simmer moment in the original one. Like, you just thought about it, and it was like, I think that was probably one of the last shots of the movie, and it just pans out, and like you're left with that thought in your head. And in the 2016 version, you're left with a completely different thought, and it's not nearly as resounding.
And there's a little bit more hand-holding throughout this one, which is to be expected with an American movie. And maybe that's part of the mysticism of the first one too, is you're kind of left to your own devices to figure some of these things out. And even at the end, you're just not sure, and you can either go left or right. There's no wrong answer,
right? Which
is kind of brilliant.
And but in 2016, you're led down this path, and you very much arrive at a decisive, concrete ending. You know,
yeah,
and I think that is disappointing, to say the least. Like, if you're going to A-B Martyrs 2008 against Martyrs 2016, there is no doubt in my mind, and I doubt that there would be any doubt in other fans of the original, that the 2008 version is the far, far superior movie, without a doubt. Does that mean the 2016 Martyrs is a bad movie? I don't think so at all.
No, and it's definitely, I think, easier to digest. And if you kind of want somebody to, I guess, maybe get that feel that you just know personally couldn't digest 2008, and that's got to be a good chunk of the population, I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a tough movie, man.
Right? Yeah, it's not a fun one to watch per se. I think the 2016 is a good alternative, so you could kind of talk about the movies together, but they would kind of get the watered down version, and I think that's okay.
I'm conflicted because I feel like the Martyrs story is really one that should be watched by as many like fans of movies, period. Unfortunately, they do a disservice to like the biggest part of the story in the remake, where I can't really say I can justify someone watching this as an alternative. This is a pretty movie. It's well shot. The acting is pretty goddamn good.
It's not bad.
The story, falls off in the third act. And there are many people that think the story falls off in the third act of the original one as well. We've heard that a lot over the last week or so.
And it's not as good as the original. That's just the fact. But it's shot well, like you say. It's acted well. If it didn't have a predecessor, I think we would be like, this is an all right movie.
Yeah.
I think really the only thing that's holding it down is the way the story's presented. Whether that's a rehash of a story or if it was its own original story. I feel like either way, it's a little weak.
This is not a shot-by-shot remake. It is not lazy. These guys really, really liked the screenplay that was presented to them. They chose to direct it. And, I think this is the third time you've said it. The remake is not as good as the original.
No.
No. The answer is no. It is not as good. If you've never seen the original, check this out. Just because it's not as good as the original does not mean it's a bad movie. And I think a lot of people have a really hard problem understanding that.
And for everyone who hated the way we did the review, that is exactly why. So, there it is. Unpopular as that will be.
Thumbs down button is over here.
Right.